I do believe that in order to be a good user of AI, you need to understand something about the technology and how it works. That might be at different levels and might be just tiny, but that knowledge of AI at some level will help you be a more effective and critically engaged user.
Welcome to Data and AI Mastery, the podcast where we bring you cutting-edge insights, practical advice, and inspiring stories from the leaders shaping the future of data and AI across the globe. I'm your host, Raoul-Gabriel Urma, founder of Cambridge Spark, the leader in transformational data and AI upskilling, career development, and progression. In each episode, I will be diving into real-world case studies of companies harnessing the power of AI to drive innovation, reduce costs, and create new business opportunities. So whether you're an aspiring data scientist, AI engineer, or seasoned executive, this show is designed to give you the tools and knowledge to stay ahead in a world where data is transforming every aspect of business. Stay ahead, stay inspired, stay masterful. Welcome to Data and AI Mastery. Hey, Sue, good to see you. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And thanks for inviting me along.
It's a huge pleasure, Sue. As you know, I'm a big fan of your research work. I think computing education is extremely important. I'm very passionate about it, especially for the next generation. So I can't wait to talk about those topics with yourself. So to kick us off, Sue, I'd love to, for you to tell us a bit about your journey, right? Like, why computing education?
I started off doing a PhD in AI education, would you believe it, which I got in 1993. So we're talking a long time ago. And as part of that, I developed intelligent tutoring system back in the day for language learning. But then, did my postdoc, and then I went into school teaching, and I taught in school for 12 years, schools and colleges. And my whole perception of education compared to what I was thinking about as a sort of developer, sort of researcher changed. I realized that what I'd done for my PhD was probably completely ill-informed, and how important teachers were my whole perspectives on learning and teaching really changed. And then I was around at the sort of the right time in a way. When the computing came into the curriculum in England in 2014. I was by then back in academia working in teacher education. And I had by then a master's in education, a PhD, etc., in sort of AI, computer science. And so I got involved in research in computing education at a time when nobody really was doing this in the UK. And, I've been very fortunate in working in education departments, working at the Raspberry Pi Foundation. I'm now working in Cambridge in the computer science department. And I have a small, very focused research centre and have a wonderful team of people looking at the many things that we can research in this area.
Fantastic. And as you know, I'm a big fan of your research group, having recently donated a scholarship. So can you tell us a little bit, what's the current research interest?
So in our group, we are looking a little bit of AI education. And that's around, sort of concepts and skills that you would need to teach about AI. We've also got a sort of an area of programming education, so how you teach programming. I've got a PhD student looking at debugging. And also some of the team that are sort of linked to mine and Raspberry Pi Foundation, looking about how you might use generative AI in learning programming. And then we work with the Microbit Foundation, and we're doing a longitudinal project on physical computing. And then various other bits and pieces.
That's amazing. Maybe to kick us off more generally, it feels like we live in a world that is moving really fast. Like technology adoption is happening faster than ever. ChatGPT came out a couple of years ago, and it's already got over 800 million active users, from a consumer point of view. So that's pretty intense. So in this age, I'd love to get your perspective of what are the skills you feel are important, today, if we can call this the age of AI.
So I think there are lots of skills that young people will need. And it's actually quite difficult for, schools and teachers to sort of unpick those. But if we describe them in sort of buckets, there's, young people need to sort of an awareness of AI systems, saying that I need to know where it's being used, whether they're interfacing with an AI system, whether what's happening to their data. Is it being used? Are they happy about it being used? Where is AI not useful? All those kind of awareness skills. There's another bucket about being able to use AI. So being able to confidently use AI for the things that you want to do, not just because the technology's there, but as an assistant, for you. So that involves being able to understand what you do want to do. So, problem solving and that sort of thing. And then, the ability to sort of actually adapt quickly because it changes all the time. So learning about it yesterday is no good for today. So being a sort of, a good user of AI. And then my third bucket would be, I do believe that in order to be a good user of AI, you need to understand something about the technology and how it works. That might be at different levels and might be just tiny, but that knowledge of AI at some level will help you be a more effective and critically engaged user.
Interesting. So some fundamental knowledge of how it works, the systems, be able to engage, manage the outputs, maybe design with AI. Those are kind of like broadly skills you feel are important. You also said learning agility. So how do we learn how to learn faster? I guess that's maybe an interesting question.
I really sort of pull back from the sort of the faster learning thing. That's almost a separate topic in that we don't learn fast as humans. Do you know what I mean? We need time to sort of think and reflect and, form our own opinions. And that's the purpose of education. And in a way, this push to use AI to be more productive, to cram more in, can be not effective because we just end up with lots of stuff that we haven't really thought through. So that's a sort of a side bit of your question. The thing about actually that agility thing, I think it comes down, and it's for teachers as well as young people, that confidence that it's just a system. Do you know what I mean? It's just another tool. It's a piece of technology. Doesn't need to lead you. Do you know what I mean? It's there as to help you, and but we call that self-efficacy. And if you lack that confidence, then the next, you will be sort of thrown every time, the system changes, something's different and everything's moving so fast. It's almost like the most important thing is that we have this self-efficacy and agency around new technology.
That's great. That's really interesting, especially with children, right? When you're developing, it's all about learning the fundamentals, be able to kind of like critique and adapt and take your time to form your own opinions. So I really agree with that. Now, in the employment world, things move really fast and there's a bit of expectation that you have to pick up the latest really fast in order to add value back to your business or as an employee. So that's an interesting dilemma perhaps to work out. Now, if I take you to another sort of question is, why should we even teach AI and how should we teach it?
Yeah, well, that's a big question.
Really big one.
We did a little bit of research a couple of years ago when we were surveying young people between the ages of 11 to 16, most of them between 12 and 14, about their, confidence with AI. And really, we asked this question, what do you think AI is? Most of the respondents, there were just under 500, clean responses, were from 12 to 14-year-olds. And it was just really striking how young people didn't really have a language to talk about, AI. They actually didn't know. They sort of have got something in their head about it's there, it's everything, I'm interfacing with it, but not able to say anything about sort of, what we meant by AI. Sort of a lot of, it's a bit like the internet. And then these kind of also these more worrying misconceptions around it's sort of it's got human-like, it's like a human, it thinks. I trying to think, I had quite a good AI is a non-human sort of sentient with a mind of its own, you know. And when we see AI presented as very human-like, we call that anthropomorphization. It's leading young people to think that AI is like a human, and also that it's sort of magical, and that we should bow down to the technology of AI. And the reason for teaching carefully about what AI is and what it can do, and a little bit about maybe how it works, and is so that we have informed, that when young people leave school, they can, you know, they will make good decisions, even if they don't go into AI at all, because it's going to interface with every area of their life. And if you sort of fast forward 20 years, think of that child that's 10 now, you know, what is it that we need them to know at school?
So, is it about being in control and not depending on systems that appear magical?
Yes, I think there's like I said before, there's the confidence side, and then there's the ability to be to think critically about, where and why AI is being used. This is coming up I mean, there's quite a lot of new frameworks and competency lists and that sort of thing for AI now. I mean, it's obviously something that's of great interest to education systems and policymakers all around the world, but something that is coming through at the forefront is this kind of idea of being able to critically evaluate benefits and risks of AI.
Yeah, that's great. Speaking of frameworks, so the World Economic Forum has like a draft framework to define AI literacy and to think about it in four sort of vertical: engaging with AI, creating with AI, managing AI, the output, and be able to challenge it, and then designing with AI and problem solving, creating like some sort of system utilizing AI technology. How do you think about AI literacy? Everyone is creating a framework right now. The EU introduced AI literacy as part of the AI Act. I'd love to get your perspective of what do you think is important when we think about AI literacy for children, and do you think it's the same for the general population, maybe for adults as well?
So yes, we are. I can see a good evolving of these frameworks. So UNESCO produced a long list of competencies for students, I think only 18 months ago, maybe even shorter, and also for teachers. And, it's quite overwhelming, long, large grid of things. And then this OECD framework, which I think is the one that you're referring to, I see a definite evolving in these sort of frameworks as, every sort of, new iteration sort of comes out. So the OECD definition of AI literacy representing technical knowledge, durable skills, future-ready attitudes, I think encompasses quite a lot. What I feel like these frameworks sort of maybe miss is that, AI is used in context. It's used in a certain domain. You know what I mean? You can't critically evaluate the pros and cons of AI just like that. You can't say, now, children, we're going to have a lesson on. And it's all dependent on where it is what you're doing, what the context is. So it becomes very interdisciplinary and very much attached to the context that you're talking about, the application you're using, or the purpose for using it. So in a way, the danger of some of these broad encompassing frameworks is that they don't answer the question of where are you going to teach this. The statement that in this framework around AI literacy is like 4 lines long, but absolutely huge. And it raises a lot of questions.
Really interesting. So, if you're a parent today, things are a bit overwhelming because on one side, you want to support your kids to grow and develop, and you can clearly see AI being used everywhere, but you can also see that AI be used in bad ways, and you can't really trust it. On the other side, you can also see your kids using AI probably more than you are on a day to day because it's it's part of, your childhood now. So what sort of advice would you give to parents in this context?
That's a really good question. And we have been doing a little bit of research. We haven't finished analysing yet when we've been interviewing parents and their 10-year-old children about technology in general. And we do find that exactly what you just said comes up, that parents might feel, some parents, not all parents, might feel quite anxious about what's safe for their young person to learn and how much should they be use, how much should they be learning, using AI, and they don't really understand what they're doing on their screens and that sort of thing, and wanting to protect their child. And at the same time, some parents have said to us that they look to schools to teach young people this because they won't possibly be able to keep up, and that their child will be able to teach them at the end of the day. So obviously but even without having the concrete knowledge, I think it's the discussion with your child that is so important. And going back to how we should be thinking more critically, in an ideal school curriculum, we would be spending a lot of time in discussion and developing those kind of thinking and arguing and questioning skills around technology. And unfortunately, currently, I don't think we do. We have curricula rammed full. So what can happen in the home, do you know what I mean, to complement what's happening in school, is a discussion. Where is, what's happened when you use ChatGPT, PT, what does that mean? So any discussion, the parent doesn't need to have the answers. It's just asking. I mean, critical thinking is essentially asking good questions and, encouraging children just to ask questions and to be curious and, and think about where technology is being used.
So it's great to hear your perspectives here. And I'd love to also get your opinion on what is sometimes confused. There's this idea of teaching about AI, and this is the idea of teaching with AI. So kind of encouraging teachers to use AI to create more personalized learning experience or for themselves to be more productive, for example, for marketing and so on. Could you, from your perspective, tell us how you see the difference and what's important?
Yes, good question. So teachers can use AI for productivity. So there's been lots of guidance given to teachers, and there are lots of tools out there for teachers to help them prepare lesson plans, and and they can speed up emails to parents and those sort of things on the sort of productivity side that don't directly interface with the young person. So I think as teachers have a really heavy workload, sort of training for teachers on how to do that effectively, is really good. But then when we get to like teaching with AI for teaching and learning, as opposed to teaching about AI, which I think is probably the distinction you're getting to. So yes, so you can teach, you can use LLMs, whatever, in your classroom. You could help young people to do their research with LLMs. And then, for example, my subject is programming. So if you're teaching programming, obviously you have questions of when it's appropriate to use an LLM, because obviously it can write all your code, but it's producing an output that you maybe haven't learned anything from. So teachers need to make decisions about when with AI it's relevant and helps the learning process, and when it's when there's time for sort of thinking about sort of fundamental skills. And that's quite hard to do. So I think we're in a sort of learning journey there all around. I also think, so teaching about AI. So I'll just tell you about the way we divide up teaching about AI in our research centre, which is through the SEAME framework, which is SEAME, social and ethical, which is the one level, which you can imagine that's all the sort of critical thinking stuff I've been talking about. Applications is how we use AI. Models, which is another layer down in a way of understanding some of the, how it works. And then the engine level is really the technical, maybe coding, the really sort of technical level. And we would develop this framework to be able to understand, to have a language to talk to people about, what are you doing at what point? So if we bear that in mind, we probably need to teach some of those different levels for depending on the age of students, whether they're doing qualifications, whether they're doing, and just focus on more of the social, ethical, and applications layers for most students.
You mentioned programming and coding. So, I've been coding since I was 6 years old, like my mom and dad bought a computer. I picked up HTML, JavaScript, and so on, and then ended up doing computer science, specialized in software engineering. And obviously I'm biased. It's helped me a lot. It's helped me structured and problem solve and, kind of like think a bit more logically, I guess, and rationally. Now, in this environment today, we talk a lot about how coding is being automated away, right? LLMs are super good at spitting out a lot of code, and even you can create applications with thousands of lines in like seconds, which is, quite a feat. So in this context, how important is it to teach programming?
I mean, that is a much contested question. I'm not going to come down on one side or another. But the Raspberry Pi Foundation, in the last couple of months, produced a why we must still learn to code positionality statement about how important it is still to learn to program. And other people have really sort of spoken out in favor of code, whereas you always hear learning to program, whereas you hear a lot of, we don't need any more junior programmers, we can do all this stuff. So basically, we can use generative AI to, we can use Copilot to generate code or whatever tool if their output is needed, but we're not able to evaluate whether it's effective or not. For the arguments for still learning to program are that, we don't want to lose control of whether we understand whether that we can modify that, whether can we modify that code, can we evaluate that code, is it fit for purpose? So to do that, you need to be an experienced programmer. There's research that says that, if you just get first-year undergraduates just to generate their code for their assignments, they're not able to tell you anything about programming or what it will actually do. And so the focus on those undergraduate courses has become more on sort of code comprehension. Let's see what the code is and how do we understand it and make small changes. In terms of using tools, the sort of current thinking, like from the US, is around teach the principles of programming, just teach the basics so that you can and then use the tools to be more productive once you need to generate code. But then the other side is, well, why do we even need programmers anyway? So, and then you get to these arguments of actually through programming, you learn, important skills like decomposition, being able to abstract, problem solving, having to have, unambiguous, solutions, these are actually, you learn about logic, these are actually important skills in their own right. So I think there's various arguments to and fro, on both sides, but it's definitely, I'm just going to say, it's a debated issue.
Absolutely. Thank you for your perspective. I'll take you to a quick fire round of questions if you're up for it.
Yeah, sure.
Brilliant. Well, let's start with a contrarian view that you have. And obviously, we've talked about a couple actually already, but if you could, maybe share one, what would that be?
I believe that we should teach in a more interdisciplinary way. And we have very sort of, once we get to secondary education, we divide things up quite definitely into buckets. You'd have maths for an hour, then history for an hour, then computing for an hour, and then you might not have that subject for the next week. We don't teach in an interdisciplinary way, and we should. And we focus too much on high stakes assessment, which causes stress and anxiety and favors some particular groups of students. And those kind of ways of working, we don't do projects very much, are not helping us to young people to think for themselves. And I'd refer the listener to Gert Biesta's 3 Purposes of Education to think about we're not just in school just to learn facts. Do you know what I mean? We are, young people are developing as human beings. So that we should be reflecting that in education. That wasn't a very quick fire answer.
It's a great perspective. I really agree. My next question is, we've talked about magic wand before, but let's say you could solve any issue in computing education with a magic wand, what would that be?
I think if we stick on AI, where what we've been talking about at the moment, I think we urgently need professional development for all teachers in all subject areas, primary and secondary, on AI, the implications of AI. I mean, because teachers are just so important in the education system. There's a lot of focus on things for young people directly, but we're not going to get anywhere unless we have an educated workforce, and that needs to come from the top. So my magic wand would be to the government to provide, comprehensive, free AI, professional development for teachers.
I agree. My next question is a bit more personal. Very curious about your answers. I'll kick off. What is your favorite programming language?
Well, my PhD was in Prolog.
No way.
So even though I really programmed only in Python for the last 10, 15 years.
You did your PhD in Edinburgh, right?
I did, yes. Yeah.
Prolog is very, very big in Edinburgh. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So that's my kind of that's kind of what brings out a sort of a warm sort of feeling inside.
I love your answer. Brilliant. And what was your favorite subject back in primary and secondary school?
Maths and languages. And that's when I think I got into computer science, because it was that, maths and languages, I think, fit really well together.
And final question is, what is your favorite music genre? What gets you going?
I don't know about genre, because I listen to all sorts. My favorite band, and for the purposes of this podcast, I've taken my poster down. Favorite band is Arcade Fire. I love Arcade Fire. I go and see them as often as possible. I don't even know what genre you'd call it, but that's what I'll stick with for now.
It's been absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I'm a big fan of yours and can't wait to see your contributions for the field.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Really delightful conversation with you. We've talked a lot about AI literacy, AI in education, and the future. So let me bring a few reflections together. The first one is the importance of empowering the next generation, children from primary and secondary schools, to take ownership over AI systems. Think about the outputs, manage AI system, and be in control if things go wrong, but also so we don't depend on this magical system for everything we do in our life. Now, we discussed this idea of AI literacy in this context, and I like to think about it across 4 verticals: engaging with AI, thinking about safety, thinking about input and output of the systems. The second is thinking about creating with AI, managing with AI, and finally, how do you design systems that use AI and might be combining, multiple AI agents together to solve a problem. So there's kind of like 4 components that one may want to think about in terms of AI literacy. And we had finally a really interesting debate about coding. Should we teach coding, the importance of coding into this world? And, my personal view on that is programming/coding teaches you really durable skills that are really vital in this environment. So critical thinking, debugging, root cause analysis, logical thinking, thinking in terms of steps, breaking down a problem in order to solve it, decomposition, etc. So coding is not just about building application. It's not just about being able to edit code if things go wrong. It's really giving you a broad set of skills that you can apply in whatever projects and whatever problem you'll face in your life. So really fascinating discussion. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Data and AI Mastery. If you found value in today's discussion, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an insight from the leaders driving the future of data and AI. And if you're a data and AI leader looking to upskill your workforce with the fundamental data and AI skills to transform your business, Cambridge Spark is here to guide you every step of the way. Be sure to reach out to us on LinkedIn or on our website, cambridgespark.com. Until then, be sure to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with data, and remember, mastery comes with continued learning and action. Until next time, stay ahead, stay inspired, and stay masterful.